Hello and welcome to episode number 209. This is the Project Management Podcast at pm-podcast.com and I am Cornelius Fichtner. Nice to have you with us. Today we welcome back Jeff Furman, the author of the Project Management Answer Book. In this interview we learn how Jeff became a project manager and how he dealt with the fact that the very first project that was ever assigned to him had previously failed, and it now fell to him to save the day. Jeff's story is simply a great and inspirational tale of, for once, something going right in our profession. It shows how we as project managers can motivate people to do things right, if we can speak to the needs of our customers and then deliver on our promise. And now, surprise, you're a project manager now. Enjoy the interview.
The Project Management Podcasts feature interview. Today with Jeff Furman, author of the Project Management Answer Book and PMP instructor.
We are back at the PMI North American Congress with Jeff Furman, author of the Project Management Answer Book. Hello, Jeff.
Hi, Cornelius. Nice to see you in Dallas.
This interview right now is not going to be about your book. It is going to be about your experience of being a, accidental, brand new project manager. So we want to talk about the first project that you have ever been handed. And the good news is it was a failed project that had been handed to you. Sort of, hey Jeff, why don't you manage this project? And by the way, it had failed previously as your first project. Interesting experience. So let's begin with at the very beginning. What project are we talking about?
We worked in a very large brokerage in Manhattan, and there was an urge to modernize the IT system to put every program update through a software change management system. So there are change management systems on a project level. This was trying to put a change management system on top of an entire IT department with 1,000 developers.
Okay, so pretty much what you see today in a normal IT department, you can't just put your code into production. You have to put it through the change management system. It gets all compiled together and it's approved and goes in. So they didn't have that, right?
Believe it or not, that was a leading edge idea at the time, and it was looked at as, are you kidding? This is a brokerage with thousands of programs. We'll never get this in. This change will never happen. And that was the case before I was given it, which literally was starting tomorrow, we want you to do this project, and we're shooting for a full 100% compliance.
Wonderful. How long did it take from the moment that you took over until you'd say, we're done, it's now implemented?
Yeah, we really went from zero to pretty much 100% in about a year, and it was a very large effort.
Did you have any senior management support?
We had very strong senior management support, but ironically, they had senior management support earlier, but when he tried to do it as sort of a directive, it wasn't going to fly. So he got me to do it, and I didn't do it just by using his support, which was helpful. But the key to the success was largely that we made it a training initiative attached to just putting in the new version. So we got everyone on this new system by teaching them the benefits, what's in it for them, and that was really the key. So I put together a class. Once the software was fully installed, I rolled out this class probably 50 times in New York and New Jersey and London.
Okay. You said earlier on it was a leading edge idea, but for us in software development these days, that's normal. That's the way you have to do it. So when was this?
Well, this was around 91, 92. And part of why it was considered leading edge is there were so many kinds of objects that we're talking about. When you say move a change into production, it sounds small, but it might be. Take a 5,000 line program, take the source code, recompile it, take the load module, make sure you get the right copybooks, make sure you get the right control cards. And so every change is unique and very complex. Some of these changes were really big, like 75 components would be considered one change. So the idea of putting all of those components into one change package, it's a great idea, but it also sounds daunting, and to the naysayers, it sounds like it's not doable.
what opposition did you have?
Well, we really did have pretty strong opposition from the developers themselves, because even though it would help the company as a whole on the level of their looking at their own output, they saw it as an encumbrance. In other words, it was asking them to go from the situation where they were managing their own changes largely to sort of being under the thumb of management controlling the changes, which is a good thing to people in management. In other words, putting in safeguards, putting compliance, make sure everything is going through the proper channels. By the way, though, even though you say that today it's common, when I meet a lot of people in my project management classes who say that they don't really have a fully compliant change control in their companies. And not only that, many people are trying to reinvent the wheel even as we speak right now, writing their own quick and dirty change control system, because not everyone knows what seems like an obvious fact to you with your IT background. People think, oh, you want control of changes? I'll write something quick myself. And it's usually not so quick, and it's not robust like a proper product that's out on the marketplace for many years.
And this was your first project?
Yeah, believe it or not, it was my first and biggest, I guess. It was a very massive scale, but I'm very happy that it went so well, and we really... The benefits to the company were enormous. In other words, today it's commonplace to have a change control system. Prior to this, there really was only paper forms at best, and often no forms with changes going into production.
Yeah. And since this was your first project, did you have any formal project management training? Did you have any know-how of project management approaches, methodologies?
I did not. It sounds funny to say,
yes,
but I wasn't a newcomer to the company, so I already had a pretty good network. I was very friendly with many of the developers because I had been a technical trainer. All of these developers were people that I had taught programming languages and software development tools, testing tools, code analyzers. So I had taught a lot of these people a lot of courses, so I had a kind of a friendly rapport with quite a lot, hundreds of these developers. And so I was brought in to run this project because they wanted someone who could really persuade the programmers why it's good for them and really get them to use the tool.
Okay, so you got the call, right? The next day you started working on this project. What was the first thing you did?
The first thing I did, and I would even do it better now, is make sure that we know exactly what are the customers, what do they want, why will this help the company, and how to get them to use it, how to get them to really make bite the bullet and take the plunge into the new system.
You also mentioned training, that you did a lot of training. How did that help you in regards to getting the message across and getting the buy-in?
Yeah, I had been a trainer for many years first, about 5 years. Actually, I wasn't asked initially to do a training course, but had they done training earlier, they would have gotten the conversion done a lot sooner. But after maybe about a month, I made the pitch to management that if we had a good course, that would be a key to success, because we would really show the programmers who are against using a change control system, show them why it's to their benefit. And the biggest thing that I came up with was, there's a very common scenario for developers in the world. Something doesn't work. There's a flaw or a defect. Fix it in a hurry.
Right, and you mentioned, we had breakfast earlier on, you mentioned that the hurry could be that the market is opening up in England, and they're based in New York, and they would get a call in the middle of the night from England at 3 o'clock in the morning saying, fix it now.
Yeah, fix it now has a great urgency in brokerage. It's considered, every change is considered life or death, and it's not only because you're worrying about the stock market opening in New York, but all over the world, particularly London was our big site besides New York and they're 5 hours ahead. So I came up with just one day the idea of persuading reluctant adapters of our system that the next time you get a call at 3 a.m. and you're told to fix a bug, and it really means fixing 50 different components to a change, do you want to scramble around looking all over the place, take out the new stuff, put in the old stuff that was working, or would you rather type in one thing, yes, back out the change package?
Right, so you spoke to their fears, to their needs, and you were able to get them to come on board.
Yeah, and really their main focus should be the coding and not fooling around looking for all these packages to move in and out. In other words, this was a great burden that we lifted from the programmers by saying, here's an instant back out. If you want to back out a change, it's essentially as simple as type in B for back out and then get the approval and let the software take out the new and put back the old for you.
Okay, so that means you started out with 1,000 very reluctant software developers.
Yeah.
Slowly but surely you started to get them on board. Okay, now let me bring on a totally different perspective. The keynote speaker tonight is Malcolm Gladwell. Malcolm Gladwell wrote the book The Tipping Point, in which he says, an idea takes off very slowly in the beginning, and then at some point there's a tipping point and it just explodes. Did something similar happen in that particular project? Can you relate it to that?
Yeah, honestly, I was in the middle of the tipping point in this case because it was the class that did it. What we did is first we started with, you pick some people that you think will be pretty good students and pretty eager and pretty good at picking up the new stuff. So we did a couple of pilot classes where we got what we thought were sort of the best people to try this stuff out on.
Sort of the rainmakers, they call them, right?
Yeah.
The people who are respected, and if they say, this is a good thing, then it will start raining throughout the whole organization. This idea will seep through. Okay.
Yeah, they were respected managers and developers. They were persuasive people. They were people who, like you said, if they go back and say this is good, it's an instant yes to their people and their friends. So that was our strategy there, and that was very effective. And also the WIFM WIFM, as soon as people were able to say, boy, that saved me a lot of trouble because I used the change control system, every story like that goes around like wildfire because, everyone is in the same boat in a brokerage company, for instance, where errors are very public. And if you can say, this saved my life last night, that goes around really fast.
Yeah. For those who don't know, WIFM is an acronym, WIFM. What's in it for me? So really you speak to the needs and you tell the developers, here is a solution that will alleviate a problem. This is what's in it for you as a developer. What was your biggest mistake in this project?
Well, I was put in a funny position to implement,
to say the least.
Implement a system that we already forced everyone to use, but they weren't using it. So we had the support of a great CIO, and he was able to back us up. But it was a very daunting task, and also we were thrown at it with very few resources. So if I could go back in time, I would like to say we need at least such and such number of people to help quickly install it quicker, help me roll it out quicker. So going back in time, it's easy to see, like Groundhog Day, we could do it better if we did the training earlier and if we had a bigger staff. And also, last but not least, we were too accommodating of requests for enhancements from some of the various players. The interesting thing is there was more than one customer base. There were customers, you could say, who were the developers who would be using this change management system, but there were their customers also who were the real customers, the end users. And there was also the operations department who had been controlling changes prior to our system. So all three of those groups felt that they are the customer. And there was a lot of change requests coming in, as it'll often say in the PMP test questions. Change requests were coming in from multiple sources, and it was hard to say no. In some cases, if I could go back in time, I would like to say no, where we let people dictate how they wanted our system to be, and they made it a bit cumbersome for doing new versions of the system because every time we did a new version of the vendor product, we had to upgrade it and incorporate the enhancements each time.
Right. So you made changes in version 1, version 2 comes out, and then you have to go back and make those changes again.
Yeah,
right, to version 2.
And it's very hard to do.
Yeah.
The guy who did it last time might no longer be with the company or on part of the project team, and this is an area where senior management doesn't know this because they're not hands-on techie people, and they don't think of it that way. They think, what's the big deal? Here's a new version of the vendor product. Why don't you just put it in? Comparing it to like a new version of Windows or a new version of Word, they don't really know what goes on under the covers.
There's so much customization that we had put into version 1.0. We first have to figure out how we come to customize version 2.0 in this. So how many people were on your project team? How many people did you have supporting you?
Well, in the New York office originally, it was just a few of us. In our other branch, there was something like 8 people on that branch of the project.
So it was a rather large project that was handed to you as a new project manager.
Yeah.
How did you manage all the personnel issues, directing people, guiding people through this project?
Well, I was able to have a pretty good free hand on picking good people for the team. So I was able to pick people who, they were not only systems programmers on the technician side, but when I was hiring, I was looking for also that they had an application development side, because in the IT world, a lot of people are either one or the other, application developers or system support programmers. But I would look for people who, like me, liked both sides, and they would understand both sides, and they would be customer focused.
Okay. Where did you go from here? Project is done. You've just finished your first project. What was your continuation path? Did you realize, hey, I'm now a project manager, I should get some training? Or did you just get assigned your second project and you kind of kept falling into it like that?
Well, the company did have pretty good training for the managers. It wasn't PMP in those days, though, but we had pretty good stuff that is in the PMP today. It's things that I like about the PMP, or things that we were doing then, we just didn't call it that. But we were learning, we were taking management courses like, all kinds of management courses like dealing with other managers, being rated on your strengths and weaknesses as a project manager. So the company had a pretty robust training program. It wasn't like a formal program, but it was ad hoc management classes every year. Take these 3 or these 3.
Excellent. Okay, so there are probably a lot of accidental project managers out there like yourself. Some of them may have just found the Project Management Podcast today. This is the first episode they listen to. What is your advice for them? Okay, so you've been given your project yesterday. What are the first 2 or 3 things that an accidental project manager should be doing?
I think it comes down to, partly, like PMI emphasizes, you do have to stand up for what the project needs to succeed. As soon as you look at the project, you want to analyze what does the customer need, and then what will it take to get them that, and what are metrics for success going to be, and what resources do I need. Typically, there is a pushback. So the second thing is, you really need to be able to push back when senior management says we'll give you 3 people on the technician side. If you need 4 or 5, you have to be willing to stand up and make the case for why this is best for the customer.
That's not going to make you popular, really.
Yeah, it is. You could call it bravery, or you could call it ethical in the PMI. In other words, it is the wrong answer. It's not the answer management wants to hear, but that's partly their job to test you, because everyone would say, give me 50 people all the time. So management says we're only giving you X. You make a case why you need Y, and that's really the role of a good project manager. People who succeed, they do need a good staff, and you have to be willing to push for that good staff.
Excellent. Okay, and 20 years later, all this experience that you have gathered through that project and all the project that follows ended up in your book, The Project Management Answer Book. Jeff, thank you very much once again for being on the program here and talking to us about your first project.
Well, it was a pleasure, Cornelius. Thank you very much.
And for those of you at home, we just shook hands. And that was my interview with Jeff Furman on how he was introduced to project management. That's it for today. Thank you very much for listening. As always, you can find us on the web at pm-podcast.com. If you are a project manager who wants to become a PMP, then the easiest way to do so is with our sister podcast, the Project Management Prepcast, and study for the exam by watching over 38 hours of video training from pmprepcast.com. Please send your emails to info@pm-podcast.com, and when you write, please tell me where in the world you are writing from. And finally, we have this. Every failing, overly ambitious project has at its heart a series of successful, small projects trying to escape. Until next time.